Hello everyone, welcome back to Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough. This is the Crafting 101 to the new event, Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid. Apologies on the lateness of this whole debacle. Might like the people behind the game. They've introduced a new mechanic and it's been causing some issues for a lot of people, including myself, unfortunately, resulting in some delays, and also the fact that they decided to update the game when I was going into work for the long weekend, so that's great. Anyways, long story short, besides my grievances, we're going to be talking about this event's new grand prize, that being the Horror Throne shown here. I'll talk quickly about how you can obtain yourself a Horror Throne and what you can do to get yourself into this particular. However, this isn't going to be a long kind of rant, not really a rant, but you'll see what I mean by this. I'm not going to look into all the characters in this update because I think at this point most of the characters featured are going to be characters that only drop one item, which is going to be one of the dices that you'll need, and that being the D4, D10, and then the D20. But not only that, but only a selected few characters I would say is pretty much something you can look into. And I'll talk more about this and how this whole thing works. So hopefully this is a little bit shorter than normal, but maybe this will not be the norm come next part or next update, but we'll have to wait and see. So anyways, let's just go ahead and dive right into the game. So we start off with the Promenade. I'm guessing this is the Goosebumps stage or whatever you call this. They're claiming it's supposed to be like a yard sale, but it more looks like a small outdoor picnic kind of area. And over here, where the HTTV, where my doppelganger is, we have the items needed. So, as you'll probably notice, when it comes to the D4s, they're going to be like the really easy thing you can grab because, you know, and they're only needed to get the D10s, unfortunately. So these are going to be like, D10s are going to be like really easy to obtain. You'll notice that there will be some characters in the game that's actually going to be available to drop some D10s. And then the D20s are a little bit more higher, but there are characters that can help drop some of them. I will talk more about characters that are more important in a minute. The other problem too with this update is the fact that some characters will need items in order to get some of these D dices, so really it's up to you. Anyways, the items involved in order to get this grand prize right here are the monster cards, the hero cards, the coin of fate, and the horror crown. Now, this is where the issue might come in for some players, because, as you'll see here, the Coin of Fate will require one of the monster cards and the hero cards. These are going to be the item you have to focus on first. You only need 4 of these, mind you, but they're there to get. Here's where the issue comes in. So all 4 items that you need to get the item are here. And you'll notice is the monster cards and the hero cards will require a scene item. This being the Emperor, which is the Dragon's Lair on the side here. And the wild card, which is going to be the Jekyll's Haunt, which I'm going to talk about. You probably may have already heard me talk about it in part 1, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm filming this first, so we'll see what happens. I'll try to make mention of it if I didn't. But I'll explain more of the rant here. You'll also notice that when it comes to the Horror Crown, in order to get that, you need 3 of each of the new scenes, or one of them being used. The Wild Card, the Emperor, and then you'll notice the Horseman's Armor. The Horseman's Armor is funny because I believe this is a reused, repurposed item that was first seen, I believe, I might be mistaken, but that could be the second event, which was the Invasion of the Body Squeezers. I might be mistaken. It reminds me of something like this, but it could be something completely else. So what you'll notice is that the 2 monster cards here, you'll actually need to get the Coin of Fate first before you can focus on the cards and the coins. However, for one of them, you're going to be needing it a lot more. Because there are certain characters that are very useful and others are not. You'll also notice that there are stuff like a Be Afraid cards, the player's handbook, the D20s and votes. Now, all these things can be actually skipped because in the item shop, you'll notice that most of these buildings here, like especially the yard sale, it's going to drop you the cards pack, the Be Afraid cards, as well as a role-playing table that will give you the dice. So really, there's not a real incentive to get it. The only real incentive you'll probably need to get is through the books, because the books are needed, which, by the way, the player's handbook is another reused assets of this year's Valentine's Day event, if you remember that. That stuck around for a while before it disappeared. But anyways, you'll notice that they need it for the monster cards and the heroes cards. You need 2 of each, unfortunately. There is a way to skip this, however, but if you don't, you will have to use up your Be Afraid cards and all that stuff. So although they're like, yeah, you can need to get vote cards, you need to get carousel, you really don't need to, because, again, there are alternatives you can get this, so you don't really need to focus on getting Theo in order to get this. Although Theo will have a task to give you some D20, D4s, he's not really required. He doesn't really give you any benefits to that. So most of the normal characters, you'll notice that they tend to just be average as far as what they can give you. They do drop items, mind you, but not by much. Like, for example, we got, Brooke here. Like, for example, Brooke, she only does like 1 item, which is like give you D20s and then gives you some coins. So really, if the part 1 didn't show you what characters are useful, then it should probably give you a good idea. However, before I talk about the new players and the new characters and scenes like that, I might as well talk about, and I did briefly talk about this with the items, but I am going to talk about this now. I'm going to be talking about characters that are useful as far as this event goes, that are actually not like giving you 1 items in particular. One of them, funny enough, is Emily. Now, if you played the Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, which, by the way, should be coming very soon, so don't worry, I'm on my way on that one. It seems like this whole thing, I'm going to make a joke about this when the whole video comes out, so I'm going to save it until then. But, as you can see, Emily, she is actually part of the story, which kind of suspected my debate, no, not debate, but more or less my theory correct, that they're actually going to be putting higher level characters as an early access kind of deal. So that's great because we get to have more opportunities. But as you'll notice, her normal tasks, are now going to give you more of a chance. She has 4 quests that allows you to get all 3 of the dice. One of them you'll need the yard sale though, but that's part of the quest, so really that's going to just help you there. But you'll notice that you also need the trees, the tree spawn sporter. I don't know what the trees transporter. I guess that's what they're trying to refer to this as. But if you get this, then she'll be able to drop you some cards. So really, the deck cards. So then again, there's another character that can do that for you. So again, a lot of options to go for. I usually tend to get the characters that can give you a higher dice, more opportunities, because the higher dice seem to be more useful when it comes to certain aspects, but really they're just there for the mainstay of the game, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But let's take a look at our last character we had in the last update, which is Zeke. Zeke, like every other premium character you invest in after an event ends, is their usefulness for the next event. Most of his items, if not all of his items, actually helps drop you some stuff. So not only does he give you the voting cards, but he also gives you the Be Afraid deck. Honestly, in my opinion, because if you have other characters that can give you the D20s, let's have them do the, get the cards, because I feel like the cards are going to be more crafting heavy versus the other stuff. And as we've kind of hinted at, like, again, for example, there are the D20 things here, but then you also have the voting desk with Mrs. Murr. Have her vote. Again, these certain characters, when you're playing around with, like, Marty and all that stuff, they'll need certain items to get these, but most of them are just the dices, so they're not really very useful. If you've had Rachel back in May, unfortunately, she is useful, but unfortunately she only has one task, which is giving you the phone call, which is the D4. However, if you invested on the exclusive characters, you know, one of them being Dr. Brownstein, you'll be surprised, not really, to know that he gives you the higher leveled dice, namely the D10s and D20s. I usually go for the D20s because they're a lot higher. However, there are a lot more situations here. You'll also notice some characters that are not event-specific running around. They're because they drop the photographs, which really you didn't really need. Dustin has 2 tasks that can give you some dices, but again, it's not really the thing I'm looking for. The other person is, again, he was right over here. Mark, like Brownstein, gives you the D10s and D20s. So really, they're helpful, but not by much. You'll notice that Zeke is more helpful this time around than anything else. So, with that, we got most of these big useful characters out of the way, because everyone else is just minorly, like they assist you with minor help. But what about the new guys? You've probably seen them around a bit. I'll go with the one that you can get, which is the 650 one, which is, and I'm going to double check, okay, good, which is this guy right here. This, my friend, is Connor. Now, Connor is interesting because him and Zeke and other people, they drop the same items. However, the only difference with Connor is once you get the yard sale, he can give you the handbooks for every 3 hours, it looks like. I'm assuming it's 3 hours. I'm hoping it's 3 hours. So, yeah, so once you get that, it's 3 hours to have him do his thing. And, let's see, is there a task I can put him on for a few quick? Yeah, so let's have him do this real quick here. Yeah. You can tell I'm kind of getting a bit, like, not really exhausted, but more or less trying to think of proper things to say. But anyways, now let's talk about the exclusive. Yes, unfortunately, Connor, as far as his cost goes, you can argue, I honestly don't think he's worth that price. Unlike, say, Zeke, you can argue that, okay, he had 2 things that can give you the items for free. Connor has none of that. He has an item that could help you, sure, but it's nothing that can drop you the items. The unique character, on the other hand, that being Mr. Zarwid, as you see, he too also does stuff like Connor. The difference being is, as you can see, feed Sparkles, he will give you a monster card. This is one of the items you need, which means that this guy, if he's not going to be busy with getting the other items for the quest that you need, he's basically going to be just feeding his dragon a bunch of times, which would be interesting to talk about once the playthrough goes through. But yeah, that's all you're going to be doing. Because, and this is where the big problem comes in, as you'll notice, the characters drop not a lot of currency this time around, which is unfortunate. And the reason for that is because, like the last event, they expect you to get the items through the pawn shop area. The higher the items, the more it gives you in currency, which is what they expect you to do, or in some people's cases, buy it through bundles. But that will be during the playthrough of me talking about that. But before I talk about the issues with that, let's talk about the scenes themselves. The Dragon's Lair gives you 25 to spawn them. Spawn Sparkles the dragon. And as you unfortunately can see, it's a 50-50, meaning it's a coin toss, which is never great. Unlike the last one, which was the Phantom, he gives you it no matter what. Unfortunately, this guy, on the other hand, can only give you it maybe. It's a coin toss, heads or tails. You may win, you may lose, which is the unfortunate sucky part about that guy. which makes it even worse. You need to buy the Headless Horseman in order to get this item. However, if you've played through this game a while and have gotten him through the other 2 Halloween events, then you probably have gotten yourself not having to deal with that. But anyways, he too also is 25, but unlike the other guy, he gives you it 100%. So you just play the scene and you get the item and no problems whatsoever. So there's that. You don't have to worry about the Headless Horseman guy. He is just fine. But then let's talk about that one other item, the Jekyll's Hideout. Because, and look how fast that is. It already got the D10s because it's already been 12 minutes more. So there you go. But as you notice, you need the Jekyll's Haunt to get the wild card, the other item needed for the other items. And unfortunately, unlike, say, the monster card, which you can skip, because if you have Zarwid, you can skip that, so you don't have to give the Emperor card away. But unfortunately, you can't do that for the Heroes card, which is needed for the Coin of Fate. Which means, and this is where the sucky part comes in. Do you recall the Mayor's special secret hatch scene? Do you want to know something? Well, let's go all the way to our special. There he is, the Jekyll's Haunt. 11K. Oh boy. This is what bugs me about this. It's 100%, right? 100% you can get this. But that means you have to spawn these both together. I have no idea how much it costs. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like maybe 50 between them if they're both 25 in the other areas, I'm going to guess. It gives you 100% of it, so that at least there's that. It's not that BS. But still, and this is where my problem comes in. It is obvious that they want you to go ahead and sell this stuff here. Through the card. Like, as you can see here. Like, $9.50 for just the 2 cards. And I can have them keep on doing that. So I can keep on grinding myself to get the item. This is where the issue comes in. And I'm going to be upfront with you. If you are a new player and you did not invest in anything in this game, this event is not for you. There is no way you're going to be able to get this item, the grand prize, without at least investing into somebody or something. Zarwid is a must because of how he gives you the one item. And what sucks about him is that he's only available through a bundle. Unlike Connor, which you can maybe save up and get the items for, the item that he gives you, the book, doesn't really justify that kind of thing, which sucks. The one thing I'll also mention about this, by the way, which I forgot to mention during the beginning of the event, the last part, Crafting 101 for the Phantom of the Auditorium, I was very happy to see a lot of people in the comment section actually talking about things that you can probably do in order to help them out, like what they found was helpful, which I actually like. I like to see people come together and say, hey, I found a way you can do this to make it easier. So if you have other better methods and stuff like that with me not rambling on, please, by all means, leave it down below. Let's, as a community, help each other out with this, because we all are in this together and we have to deal with this. So, if for any reason you cannot get this character, this haunt, because it's such bull for how much they want you to get it. Fortunately for you, it's only $5 to cost this. So if you look at this and think I can justify with that, then you can do that. However, I've seen players, however, you do invest yourself with Connor and especially Mr. Zarwid, then you are basically going to be fine with it. Just have him sell the monster cards a bunch and you'll be fine. You'll be able to get it just fine from what I see from the other players. So there's that. Right. So how this is looking. You need both the monster and hero cards in order to get the Coin of Fate. You need 4 of these. Then you need to get yourself the Hero's Crown. But in order to get the Hero's Crown, you also need to get the monster cards and these first, because they require the 2 new scene items in order to get them. You can skip the Emperor card if you have Zarwid. If not, you have to deal with the Zarwid stuff. And then once you have the monster and hero cards, which are 7 each, then you can focus yourself on the horror crown in order to get the 5, in order to get the horror throne here presented to you with all the stuff. Now, that being said, I will also mention one last thing before I talk about the alternatives. So as you notice, the Be Afraid book has both. I'm going to be assuming this is Mr.Zarwid stuff, so I'm not going to be too focused on that. But if you'll notice, the grand prize is the Dungeon Tower, which is $3.45. And you might be saying, wait a minute, hold on a second. Didn't I see that somewhere before? And the answer is yes, you have. Because over here, you can also get the Dungeon Tower for 6,700 of the buttons, I'm guessing is what the currency is in this time around. Now, the thing is with this, which is intriguing, is that this was done by design. They wanted to do this so that if players didn't want to invest in the book, they can still get the prize. So maybe they're going to be moving on with this and see how this works, but I don't have a problem with this. And the reason why, and I'm going to explain this near the end with this update, as you probably noticed. So, this is going to be taking a green screenshot within the group that I've been in on Facebook, and they've assisted with me because I haven't gotten to this part yet. But according to what I see, you'll need the 4D dice, or the D20 dice, the voting slips, and then the monster and hero card. I don't know how much of each. I'm assuming maybe 5, but it depends. But it seems like it's plausible to get, especially with the D20s and the horror voting cards. So really, they're not that terrible. So really, if you don't want to get this, pay the 6.5k, then you can go that way and just craft it through there to get the horror, the Dungeon Tower, I believe it's what it's called, the Dungeon Tower. Give me a sec. Yeah, it's the Dungeon Tower. So really, it's an interesting looking building. I like it. It's pretty cool, as well as like the horror throne itself. I think it looks like an interesting design for it. Now, with that being said, there, like I said, are alternatives. If for any reason you're looking at this and saying that there's no way I'm going to craft this item and want to go through the headache with the time we have, there are 2 alternatives you can do this. The first one is something that I have confirmed through the last gameplay in part 4. And this only will work if you have this amount. If you have about 250, seems like this is the magic number, but if you have at least 250 of the hard currency, and I'm talking about the Goosebucks here, then you're able to get this thing as long as you stay in the game when the update officially ends. And what I mean by this is that you're watching this thing count down, and when it says done, a window will pop up to say, oh, sorry, you lost. Do you want to buy this thing? This is the only time you'll get this window updated, and if you really wanted to spend the 250 just to get this item, there's that option. But it only will work if you're in the game exactly when the timer reaches 0. If you do not do that, then there's no way to get it, and therefore you've missed your opportunity. So if you are one of the people that like, I have too much Goosebucks and I don't want to spend, like, I don't want to do the BS of this, but I'd rather spend it outright, then you can do that way, so long as you're available on the time that I'm going to state. I'm hoping that I'm correct with this, because I always seem to be a day late or a day early. I don't know why, it always seems to be the case. I've never gotten the number right down to the science. I think I got it this time around, but we will wait and see. The other alternative, and this is something that I have just noticed, as we've pretty much, as I probably discussed briefly in part 1, and it's going to be its own separate video. As you'll notice, the Bad Hair Day has opened up because the special book is now available. As I mentioned before, the special books are going to be a weekend kind of deal where each update will have its own like replayability of the event, meaning that most likely the book here that we see, the no, not the Horror of the Black Ring, please. The Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid book will most likely reappear again, this time in a bundle exclusive. So if you miss this event out, you're more likely to get a better deal. But if you wish to get the item, most likely I can see this being one of the unique to the bundle that you can get. So it's not a guarantee for me to say that, but it seems like that's going to be a likely option because of what I'm seeing. So there is that. So if you miss this opportunity, this is the way I look at this here is that this is your only opportunity to get this item for free, quote unquote, because you just need to craft the items and get it without having to pay Goosebucks or real life cash. But if you want to go with the other two routes, you can. There are the options there. But hopefully my little kind of speaking of this crafting thing may help you a bit of an incentive to know that you are not alone with the ooh boy. Yeah. But anyways, with the time remaining as short as it is because of the update, you might be asking, when exactly is this going to end? If my math is correct, which we all know probably isn't, a day or so later, we're looking at Monday, August 10th at 8 PM EDT. This is probably going to be a very interesting grind. Is it plausible to do? If you've invested into the game thus far, it's probably very plausible. But if you have not invested at all, you are not going to be able to get this guarantee. The reason I say that is because of how obvious it is that these characters are really required to make it a bit easier. Now, we've gone to this, and I'll talk more about this stuff in the later parts of the videos and make memes about it, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on. So anyways, I wish you the best of luck. I hope everything goes well on your end. If you have any suggestions or have any advice you'd like to share with anyone who watches the video, please by all means leave it down below. I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. So until then, until the next part of whatever Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough gives us, I have been Grim, and I'll be seeing you next time. Have a good one, and be afraid, be very afraid. This update is quite interesting.